The night cracked open with a soundless scream as the city glittered below a penthouse window, and a woman who owned half that city realized she was about to lose the one thing money had never been able to buy. Her birthday candles burned down unnoticed, wax pooling like quiet tears, while the elevator numbers dropped lower and lower, carrying a man away who had already lost too much in life to risk losing again. In that suspended moment between staying and leaving, power meant nothing, wealth meant nothing, and a single decision threatened to shatter two wounded lives that had collided by accident and fate. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. She had built her empire on certainty. Every morning for 15 years, the female billionaire rose before dawn, reviewed numbers that made others dizzy, and commanded boardrooms with a calm that intimidated even the most seasoned executives. The world knew her as untouchable, ruthless when needed, generous when it suited her strategy. What the world did not know was how empty her penthouse felt at night, how birthdays came and went with assistance and silent gifts, how success had slowly replaced warmth without her noticing. This birthday was supposed to be different, though she had not known why when she woke up. She only knew there was a heaviness in the air, as if something fragile had wandered into her perfectly ordered life. The single dad entered her world weeks earlier through a door most people overlooked. He worked nights as a maintenance contractor for one of her subsidiary buildings, fixing what others broke, keeping systems running while the city slept. He was efficient, quiet, and always left spaces better than he found them. He carried exhaustion in his shoulders and tenderness in his eyes, the kind shaped by loss rather than age. He was raising a small child alone, after tragedy had stripped his life down to essentials. Every choice he made revolved around one goal: stability. He could not afford risks, emotional or otherwise. Their first real encounter was unremarkable on the surface: a late-night elevator malfunction, a brief wait, an exchange of polite acknowledgements. Yet something shifted in that confined space. She noticed how he spoke softly about his child when a phone notification buzzed, how his entire expression changed at the mention of bedtime stories and packed lunches. He noticed how she listened without impatience, how she did not look through him the way wealthy residents often did. When the elevator resumed, they parted with nothing more than nods, but both carried the moment longer than expected. Over the following weeks, coincidence kept placing them in each other's orbit. Repairs scheduled at odd hours, brief conversations in quiet hallways, shared coffee from the same machine. There were no dramatic confessions, no promises. Instead, there was something rarer: ease. For her, the ease felt dangerous. For him, it felt impossible. He knew the distance between their worlds was measured not just in money but in consequences. Getting attached meant risking the fragile balance he had built for his child. He kept reminding himself of that every time he found comfort in her presence. On her birthday, the penthouse was prepared like a scene from a magazine spread. Flowers lined the walls, a custom cake sat untouched, and a small guest list had been cancelled hours earlier. She told herself she wanted a quiet night. In truth, she wanted honesty, something unpolished. When the single dad arrived to fix a faulty sensor that had triggered an alarm, she felt the strange certainty that this night mattered. The city lights reflected in the glass as they spoke about ordinary things, about work, about children growing too fast, about how silence can sometimes be a relief and sometimes a burden. As the hour grew late, reality returned like a tide. He checked his phone and remembered the sitter's time limit, the early morning ahead, the rules he had made to survive. He gathered his tools and prepared to leave, feeling the familiar tightening in his chest that warned him he was stepping away from something meaningful. She felt it too, sharp and sudden, the fear of watching another door close. All her life, she had chosen control over vulnerability. This time, she hesitated. When she asked him to stay, it was not as a billionaire or a boss. It was as a woman standing on the edge of her own loneliness, aware of how rare genuine connection had become. The request startled him because it pierced through the careful boundaries he had built. He saw the risk clearly. Staying meant crossing into a world that could swallow him, hurt his child, complicate everything. Leaving meant returning to safety, to predictability, to a life that worked but did not heal. He chose safety, as he always did. The moment he turned away felt heavier than any boardroom defeat she had ever faced. The elevator doors began to close, and with them went the fragile hope she had barely admitted to herself. Birthdays were supposed to mark life, not remind you of what you lacked. She stood alone in the glow of the city, wealth pressing in from every corner, and understood that success had not prepared her for this kind of pain. For the single dad, the ride down was a battle. Each floor felt like a step away from something that could have been a turning point. He thought of his child asleep, of the promises he had made after loss reshaped his life. He told himself he had done the right thing. Still, the image of her standing there, unguarded, followed him out into the night. Days passed with a noticeable absence. Repairs were reassigned. Messages went unanswered. She returned to her routine, but something essential had shifted. She found herself questioning decisions that once felt automatic. Meanwhile, he noticed how quiet his nights felt, how his child's laughter filled the apartment but did not erase the sense of something unfinished. Both carried regret in different forms. Change came not through grand gestures but through necessity. A storm knocked out power in one of her older buildings, forcing emergency coordination. He was called in because he knew the systems best. Working side by side through the night, they navigated chaos with an unspoken understanding. She saw his dedication, not just to the job but to the people affected. He saw her compassion, as she ensured families were safe and supported. Her authority used to protect rather than impress. In the quiet aftermath, something softened between them. The lines that once felt immovable blurred slightly. She acknowledged her fear of being alone despite everything she owned. He admitted his fear of losing what little stability he had fought for. There were no promises, only honesty. They agreed that life did not have to be all or nothing, that careful steps could still lead somewhere meaningful. Her next birthday was months away, but the lesson lingered. She began restructuring her time, not her empire, making room for presence rather than power. He allowed himself to accept help, to believe that partnership did not have to mean danger. Their connection grew slowly, shaped around a child's needs, a demanding career, and mutual respect. It was not a fairy tale, it was something sturdier. The city continued to glitter, indifferent as ever, but the penthouse felt warmer. Laughter replaced echoes. For the first time in years, a birthday candle would be blown out with someone standing close, not because they were impressed by wealth, but because they chose to stay. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement tells us these stories matter and helps them reach others who need hope. Before the ending, leave a comment sharing whether you believe one moment of courage can change a lifetime. In the end, the female billionaire learned that asking someone not to leave was not weakness but bravery, and the single dad learned that protecting his child also meant allowing happiness back into their lives. Sometimes the most powerful gift is simply staying, and sometimes a birthday becomes the beginning rather than the reminder of what is missing.